You have probably heard the name Hannibal. You might picture elephants crossing a mountain range. You might picture a general, fierce and unstoppable. But here is what you have never been told. For 15 years, the most powerful military empire on Earth could not kill one man. They tried, again and again, and every time they failed. This is the story of why Rome was terrified. The year is 218 BC. Rome is not yet the Rome you imagine, marble columns and senators in white togas. It is a republic at war, scrappy, hungry. Already it has swallowed most of Italy and crushed Carthage once in the First Punic War. Rome believes it has won. Rome believes Carthage is finished. Rome is wrong. In Carthage, a boy watches his father prepare for war. His father is Hannibal Barca, general, strategist, the man who held Rome at bay in Sicily for years before the peace treaty forced his hand. The boy is 9 years old. His name is Hannibal. According to the ancient historian Livy, Hannibal begged his father to take him to Spain on campaign. His father agreed, but only on one condition. Hannibal had to swear an oath of eternal enmity toward Rome. He swore it. He never broke it. Think about that. An oath sworn at 9 years old, carried for the rest of his life. Hannibal grew up in the Iberian Peninsula, watching his father and then his brother-in-law Hasdrubal build Carthaginian power in Spain. Territory, alliances, silver mines, soldiers. When both men died, command fell to Hannibal at age 25. His army looked at him and followed without question. That is how magnetic this man was. Rome, watching from across the sea, thought they knew how this war would go. They had a plan. They would cross into Spain and fight Hannibal on his own ground. Then a second Roman force would sail to Africa and attack Carthage directly. Pincer movement? Clean. Logical. Hannibal had a different idea. He would not wait for Rome to come to him. He would go to Rome, through Spain, through Gaul, over the Alps, in winter, with an army of roughly 90,000 men, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants. The Roman generals heard what he was planning and thought it was insane. It was not insane. It was genius. The crossing of the Alps in 218 BC remains one of the most extraordinary logistical feats in military history. The ancient sources, Polybius most prominently, writing just decades after the event, describe the conditions in detail that still staggers the imagination. Frozen passes, paths that crumbled underfoot, rock faces slick with ice, soldiers falling into ravines, Gauls attacking from above, rolling boulders onto columns of men, elephants terrified, nearly impossible to control on narrow mountain ledges. It took 15 days. By the time Hannibal descended into northern Italy, he had lost roughly half his force. He had around 26,000 men left. Exhausted, frostbitten, far from home. Rome sent 2 consular armies to stop him. They assumed this was over. Then came the Battle of the Trebia River. December 218 BC. A Roman army of roughly 40,000, led by the consul Sempronius Longus, crossed a freezing river in the early morning hours to engage Hannibal's forces. They had not eaten. The water was chest-high and icy. By the time they reached the far bank and drew up into formation, they were numb and exhausted. Hannibal, meanwhile, had fed his men a warm breakfast, oiled their bodies to resist the cold, and lit fires around the camp. Then he waited. The battle unfolded exactly as Hannibal had designed. His weaker center gave ground deliberately, pulling the Romans forward. His elite cavalry crushed the Roman wings. Then 2,000 hidden soldiers positioned in a dry riverbed rose up and attacked the Roman rear. The trap snapped shut. 30,000 Romans died. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Rome was shaken. But Rome replaced its commanders and sent more men. Then came Lake Trasimene, June 217 BC. Another Roman army. Another consul, Gaius Flaminius. Hannibal lured him into a narrow pass along the lakeshore, then unleashed his entire army from the hills above in the morning fog. The Romans were not in battle formation. They had nowhere to run. 15,000 died in roughly 3 hours. 15,000 more were captured. Flaminius himself was killed. Rome had never lost 2 major battles in a single year. Rome had never lost 2 generals in a single year. The city went into mourning. Women gathered at the gates waiting for survivors who did not come. The Senate met in emergency session. And still, Hannibal did not march on Rome. This is the part that historians have debated for 2,000 years. He had devastated two armies. He was in the heart of Italy. The road to Rome was open. Why did he not go? The scholar Adrian Goldsworthy, in his exhaustive biography of Hannibal, argues the answer lies in Hannibal's strategy. He was not trying to conquer Rome by storming its walls. He was trying to break Rome's alliance system, to peel away the Italian cities and peoples that Rome had bound to itself as subjects and partners, deprive Rome of their soldiers, their grain, their resources, and Rome would collapse from within. It was a brilliant theory. It almost worked. The climax came on August 2nd, 216 BC, the Battle of Cannae. Rome, desperate to end this war, raised the largest army it had ever put into the field. Approximately 86,000 soldiers. Two consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, shared command. Hannibal had roughly 50,000 men. By every conventional measure, the Romans should have won. Hannibal had prepared something that military theorists study to this day. He placed his weakest infantry in the center, deliberately bowed outward toward the Romans, with his best troops on the flanks. When the Roman infantry advanced and pushed the center back, the bowed line became a concave pocket. The Roman mass funneled deeper in. Then Hannibal's elite infantry on the flanks turned inward and closed. His cavalry destroyed the Roman horse and swung around to seal the rear. 86,000 men were packed so tightly they could barely lift their weapons. 70,000 Romans died in a single afternoon. It is considered by many military historians, including the scholar John Lazenby in his definitive analysis of the Punic Wars, the most tactically perfect battle in the ancient world. Cannae entered the military imagination so deeply that 2,000 years later, German generals planning the encirclement at Stalingrad in World War II explicitly compared their strategy to Hannibal at Cannae. Rome did not collapse. This is the part that should astonish you. They refused. They simply refused. The Senate banned public mourning so the people would not lose hope. A new dictator was appointed. More men were conscripted. Former slaves were armed. Children were put in uniform. Rome gutted itself to keep fighting, and it worked. Not because Rome outfought Hannibal. Rome never outfought Hannibal in open battle. It worked because Rome switched strategies. The new approach, credited to the general Quintus Fabius Maximus, was humiliating and brutal and completely effective. Avoid battle, harass supply lines, exhaust the enemy. Let Hannibal march through Italy, burning farms, winning nothing that mattered. The Italian allies, watching Hannibal roam their lands for years, began to wonder if Carthage could actually protect them. Most of them stayed with Rome. Hannibal's grand strategy, fracturing the alliance, slowly failed. He spent 15 years in Italy, 15 years undefeated in the field, 15 years unable to finish what he had started because Carthage sent him almost no reinforcements. The Carthaginian Senate, riven by political factions who resented the Barca family, withheld the men and money he needed. His brother Hasdrubal marched over the Alps to bring reinforcements and was intercepted and killed. His head was thrown into Hannibal's camp. In 203 BC, Hannibal was recalled to Africa to defend Carthage itself. He had not seen his homeland in 16 years. The following year, at the Battle of Zama, the Roman general Scipio Africanus finally defeated him, neutralizing Hannibal's war elephants with a tactic specifically designed to counter them, and using superior cavalry to do what Hannibal had always done, encircle the enemy. Hannibal lost. It was the first time. He spent his remaining years in exile, moving from court to court, advising foreign kings against Rome, building alliances, never stopping. Rome demanded his surrender wherever he went. They could not let him exist in peace. He had frightened them too deeply for that. In 183 BC, surrounded and about to be captured, Hannibal took poison. He reportedly said, "Let us relieve the Romans of their long anxiety, since they cannot wait for the death of an old man. Here is what you are left with. A man who crossed the Alps in winter, who won battles that are still analyzed in military academies 22 centuries later. who came closer to destroying Rome than any enemy before or after, who was outmaneuvered not on the battlefield, but by politics, by distance, by the refusal of his own government to support him. He never conquered Rome, but he forced Rome to become something different, harder, more disciplined, more ruthless. The Rome that eventually built its empire, that conquered the Mediterranean world, was forged in the terror of facing Hannibal for 15 years. You cannot understand what Rome became without understanding what it was afraid of. Tonight, when you read about some underdog holding out against impossible odds, when you feel the pull of a story about one person against an entire system, you are feeling something ancient. You are feeling the echo of a 9-year-old boy on a Spanish shore swearing an oath and spending his entire life trying to keep it. Rome was terrified of one man, and one man almost won.